Hi there, Johnny Lipsham here from johnnylipshamstudios.co.uk, and welcome back to this compression mini-series in our overall series, which is the Mixing Tips series. This is part 2, and in today's session we are going to look at one of the parameters of the compressor that I kind of did not look at in the last video. And one of my subscribers pointed that out and said, could you talk about the knee of the compressor, which is this knob here? And yes, I will. I will talk about that today. And I will also talk about Mixbus compression and why Mixbus compression is a good thing and why I think you should have Mixbus compression on your mix. So let's start off with the first things first. Let's look at the knee of a compressor. It's a bit of a funny name for a parameter when everything else is kind of self-explanatory. Ratio tells you, as we looked at last time, how much the compressor is going to compress. The threshold tells you when the compressor is going to actually act. The attack time tells the compressor how quickly after audio has crossed the threshold to act, and the release time tells the compressor when to restore the volume back to its original input level. So what is this knee all about? The knee is just another smart part of your, if you were to think of this, as we talked about last time, as your little guy with his finger on the fader. And you've given him a whole bunch of instructions. You've told him when to compress, by how much, how fast, and how slow to restore to input level. There's one other thing you can tell this little guy to do, and that is how smooth or how hard to apply this compression. So the knee is pretty tightly linked in with the ratio. Ratio tells you how much to compress by. The knee tells the compressor, our little man in the machine, how smoothly to apply that compression, or not, as the case may be. That's the way I like to think of it. I spoke last time of how I think of the attack as kind of the amount of punch, and the release as kind of like the amount that as the release is kind of like a tone control or the amount of sustain. So that's the kind of way I like to think about these two somewhat misunderstood controls. Well, the knee is a very mysterious one, and the way, as I say, I like to think about it is I like to think about it in terms of how smooth or how abrupt compression is applied. And we call it the knee because, well, if you look at this line here, it kind of looks like one. If you were to imagine that this bit here, this is the compressed section. So this shows you the ratio. The little dot here shows you the threshold. So that's the compressed bit, and this is your non-compressed section. So your audio comes in here, it goes up, hits the threshold, and is compressed. Now I have the ratio set to 20:1, so pretty hefty. And that's so that I could show that it looks like a knee. So imagine this is the thigh, and this is the leg, and then down here would be the foot. So audio comes up here, crosses the threshold, and is compressed. And there's a relatively smooth little knee here. I can change that to be more abrupt by adjusting this control downwards. So if I set it to its sharpest setting here, now you can see that little curve that there was here is gone. And now what has replaced it is the audio is going to come up here, hit this blue dot, and immediately be slapped abruptly into compression. And that's basically what the knee does. You can have it very, very soft, or you can have it very abrupt. Smooth or abrupt, that's the way I like to think of it. The smoother you have this set, the less obvious compression being applied is, because a little bit of compression is being applied just before threshold and after threshold as well. So the finger starts to move a little bit according to the ratio. So that's kind of how the knee works. It's the smoother it is, the less obvious compression actually being applied sounds. Okay, that can easily be demonstrated. Let's stick this back up to the more default value of 2:1. Let's just round that off. 2:1. See, you can't really see that knee's there now because it's nice and smooth. So audio is going to come up here, cross this threshold and be compressed, yeah, a little bit. So let's solo that. Hit the solo button. Okay, we're getting quite a lot of compression there, relatively speaking. So we've got about 6 dB of compression. It's not massive, but it's certainly some considerable compression. And it's nice and smoothly applied. You can't really discern that it's being applied. But if I turn this the way down, let's try that. See what that sounds like. So now it's less smooth, and we're getting a little bit more gain reduction, but it's now a bit less smooth. If I increase the ratio, it's even more obvious. So about 3:1. Let's try that. So you can see that the knee is making it, because I've got it really on its hardest setting, that it's making the transition quite abrupt. These are a little bit subtle to hear, but as you get more into compression, the easier this is to hear. Okay, now if I soften this off all the way over, let's see what that sounds like. Getting again round about 6 dB of compression, but it's nice and smoothly applied, so a bit more subtle, a little bit more transparent perhaps. Okay, so that would be how the knee works. So I'm going to restore this back to how it is set up in default, and we'll return that to 2. Okay, so that's the knee. So the next thing I want to look at, as I spoke about at the start there, is I want to look at Mixbus compression and why it's a really good thing. Let me just turn the compressor off here at the moment. I will pop it open so you can see what I've got. It's all grayed out at the moment. Let's just listen to the whole track. So this is with the bass, the drums, and the Fender Rhodes. Alright, so it sounds alright, but it's not really, you know, particularly in your face. Not particularly, there's not a whole lot of life to it. That's certainly how it appears to my ears. But if I turn this on, what's going to happen is the compressor is just going to lightly compress. I've got the knee at its hardest setting, and I've pulled back the threshold so that I'm just getting just about a dB, maybe a tad more than a dB. And I have a slow attack and a fast release, and I've made up a little bit of the gain. And the idea with Mixbus compression is that it has this ability to pull all of your audio tracks and glue them together. Glue is a funny word, it's a funny descriptive. but it really does have this ability to pull all of your tracks together and make them into a cohesive oneness, if you like. So let's compare the difference between this compression being on, and we'll flip it on and off and we'll see. Compression on. And off. And on. Off. And on. So what it's doing is it's pulling all of the audio together and it's compressing everything by just about 1 dB. So it's very, very subtle. And the idea is that it controls the dynamic range of your entire track. Now, I've only got 3 audio tracks here and the reverb all being sent out to my master fader here. But if I had a lot more, then I would still be looking with Mixbus Compression to attain about 1 dB, because basically all I'm wanting to do is just grab the peaks just a little bit and just pull everything in together. So that's Mixbus Compression. Generally, the way I set it: slow attack, fast release, around about 10 milliseconds. And that just gets the compressor out of the way, ready for the next piece of audio, especially on a piece like this, which is quite busy. And the slow attack, I have that set very, very slow, in fact. And the reason why I have it set so slow is because I want to allow quite a lot of the transient through, uncompressed, to give the whole song a lot of life to it, and a lot of punch. And then I just make up the gain by about 1 and a little bit dB. And there we have it. And the hard knee setting, so that the compression happens very abruptly. But at this ratio setting, you're not really going to notice that too much. So I hope this was helpful. And if so, then please hit the thumbs up, like button. And if you want to see more of these videos, mixing tips, compression, EQ, all those kind of things, and we've got some other videos coming up which are going to be dealing with reverbs and delays and other ambient type effects. If you're up for more of those kind of things, then please hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to also go and check out my website, www.johnnylipshamstudios.co.uk. There you will find all of the services that I sell: mixing, mastering, session musician work, and you can hire me to do all 3 on your songs if you want, or one of those. And also there are articles with various tips and tricks and all sorts of things related to music production, music education, songwriting, all that kind of stuff. So until next time, we will see you on the next video.